Studies prove artificial intelligence makes you really stupid, and it happens fast, and it may be permanent. I don't have to think no more. Thanks, AI.
Such sights to show
you. Yep. So it's worse than even I thought. We're going to get into some very deep things. You have to question whether or not there is some orchestration to this. I'm lucky that I've been alive long enough. I think part of the reason that some people think that there's been some orchestrated effort to get rid of older people is because we remember. I remember what life was like before cell phones, internet, certainly AI, and it was very different. We're going to get into that, and yeah, this, I'm making fun of this guy, but make no mistake, I think this is very, very serious. So I'm going to get right on into it. AI makes you really stupid, and it may be permanent, studies show. By the way, there is a link below. I've got at least 2 links below about this. Don't be lazy. Watch them. This is where I'm getting some of my information. So, according to studies, 83% of people who used ChatGPT could not remember what they had written, and also that ChatGPT had reduced brain activity by 50%. So these are people in college, and they had to write essays, and some were given the opportunity to use AI to help them write, and others used either just their own brain and or they used search engines to research. So the people who used their brain in search engines, they performed much better. But the people who used AI, 83% of them, could not remember what they had written. So after they write this up and put it in and give it to somebody, they then are asked very basic points about what they had written, and they couldn't intelligently quote anything. They had no awareness of what they had just written about. And 50% of their brain activity had been reduced. So their brain activity is being monitored while they're using ChatGPT and while they're writing and creating. So it's not just like the brain is going 100% and they can just coast. The brain actually just starts turning itself off by 50%. 50%. After only 3 sessions with ChatGPT, 78% of people still could not remember what they wrote, and their brain activity was still reduced. What that means is that after they had been tested, they used ChatGPT and they made them stupid and they couldn't remember what they had done. They did that for 3 sessions. Then they went into the other group and they had to use their brain and or Google to search for things and research. And even then, they still could not remember what they had written with their own brain. So when they didn't have ChatGPT and they wrote something, they researched it, and then afterwards they were asked, okay, so can you explain this part and that part? They couldn't remember. They couldn't intelligently quote or remember anything that they had said or done. And their brain capacity, their brain activity had still been reduced. I don't know by how much, it didn't say. but their brain activity was reduced. That's only after 3 sessions of using ChatGPT. So people who regularly use AI lost their critical thinking abilities according to this study. What does that mean? It means that you can't think for yourself and you believe whatever you are told. Does that not strike you as something that can be extremely dangerous? So, I mean, I've been talking about critical thinking for a long time and how incredibly important it was. In fact, I remember taking a college course on critical thinking. It was in college. You had to learn how to be a critical thinker. Let me tell you what a critical thinker is. It's probably not what you think. Most people think critical thinkers are people who are very intellectual and they can blah, 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 and they don't believe this and they don't believe that. That's not critical thinking. Critical thinking is this, is that you understand first and foremost that everybody has an emotional agenda to whatever it is that they want to tell you or convince you of, including me, including you. It means you have an emotional attachment. It means that you have an emotionally attached response. It means that you believe that your personal, emotional, psychological, and perhaps your physical survival depends upon this, whatever it is, the assumption that you're giving me. This is why, there are people who want to argue with me about whether evil archons are ruling the world. And they want to argue with me that there are powerful beings that force you to incarnate and then feed off of you. And they have this strong belief that by believing that, they know some secret, some forbidden secret, right? So they have a very strong emotional attachment to their belief. So when I tell them that the reality is that you are the gods, and you created this world, and you chose to incarnate, and whatever challenges are in your life, you either thought about them before you got here, or you manufactured them while you were here. You have complete control over what you experience. When I tell them that, they get very upset. And they say things like, well, then what about those poor children in Africa who don't have any knees, and why did they choose to come here like that? And my response is, I don't know, you have to ask them. That's their life. They chose to come here under those conditions. And then I tell them that if you truly believe this, and if it turns out to be true, that you don't have any control over incarnating here, and that these higher dimensional light beings are forcing you to be here against your will, and they are lying to you and manipulating you and feeding off of you, then that means that you are 100% screwed. That there is no way out. There is literally nothing you can do to save yourself. And I'm telling you, you have the power to save yourself. And so the rational response to that would be, oh my God, I want to have control. You're right. I don't want to believe this anymore. This isn't serving me. That is the rational response. But when you have an emotional attachment to something, you're not rational, which means that you will fight to believe something that is ultimately destroying you. So this is the first tenet of critical thinking. The first tenet of critical thinking is that whenever somebody comes to you, including me, and they want to convince you of something, their assumptions, they have a strong emotional attachment to those assumptions, which means that they could be mistaken. So that's the first thing. Anybody comes to you, says that Jesus died for your sins, or that light beings are here to help human beings ascend. If they say that, they have a strong emotional attachment. That doesn't mean they're right or wrong, but I don't have to simply accept what they say. So that's the first tenet. Second thing about critical thinking is to ask yourself, when is something sometimes true and sometimes false? Somebody comes to you, it's night, and they say, oh my God, there's no sun. Well, that's true at that moment, but in a few hours the sun will rise and the sun will be there. So you have to ask the question, yep, there's no sun here, but when is that sometimes true and sometimes false? When is something partially true and partially false? And this, you'll learn the difference between how to, when people are conflating, flat earth people conflate all the time. You have to ask that question, when is something partially true and partially false? You have to ask these questions, and asking them means you have to go to a state where you are not emotionally attached to the outcome. I've been telling you guys for years that I'm more interested in the truth than I am in feeling comfortable. And that, I believe, is one of the things that has allowed me to learn what I've learned. So if somebody does not have critical thinking skills, it means they don't have the ability to figure out what is going on. They don't have the ability to examine any information that is given to them. And they are incapable of making up their own conclusions. They will be completely dependent upon somebody else to tell them what to believe. It will be a matter of their perceived survival, because they're incapable. At this point, they're incapable of coming up with beliefs. They're incapable of coming up with observations about reality. They're incapable of doing that. That's what critical thinking allows you to do. All right, so after only 3 sessions with ChatGPT, where did we go? People who regularly use AI, this was determined in the studies, people who regularly use AI lost their critical thinking abilities, meaning you can't think for yourself and you believe whatever you are told. 92% of college students use AI, according to this study, to write essays and are currently unable to read and comprehend long portions of text on their own. It means that, can they read? Yeah, they can read, J-A-C-K, Jack. Okay, they can read that. It's not that they can't read. What happens is if you give them a bunch of text, give them multiple paragraphs, and God forbid there's some deep subjects in there, they will be unable to, because they can't retain any information, they will be unable to read and then understand and interpret what is being given to them. They can't read long portions of text. That's a huge, huge sign that something is very wrong. These are college students. I was a college student. And, part of the reason that I'm so interested in critical thinking and in knowledge and awareness is because I spent 8 years in college studying things that had no effect on my career. And this was, when I went to college, this was starting to change. Right now, you don't have colleges, you have trade schools. When I was a kid, there were 2 kinds of places you went to go to learn. One was a university. And you went and you got a bachelor's. And a bachelor's meant you learned all kinds of things. You learned science, you learned language, you learned history, you learned philosophy, mathematics. You learned basics knowledge so that you would be a smart person and have knowledge about a lot of things. Then you went to graduate school and you got your PhD or your master's and you became a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it was. You then focused. You either did that, or you went to a trade school and you learned how to become an electrician or a mechanic or a plumber or, something like that. You had a physical trade. Those were the 2 places you went to school. And that was starting to change. When I went to college, these trade schools, they call themselves universities. They're not universities anymore. They're trade schools. And I see, you see them. You see the commercials for these. Come to, Joe Schmo University. You can train from home. It's not a university. And within 1 year, you'll get your accreditation to become a whatever the hell it is. That's a trade school. You don't learn anything. It doesn't do anything to your mind. It only gives you the ability to go out into the rat race and put more money into the hands of the corporations and the bankers. You're just being spit out to go and work your life away at something. That's not a university. When I was in university, I went and I studied classics and classical languages because I wanted to. And I studied history, I studied philosophy because that's what I wanted to. And I remember I was getting my BA, and some guy who was a business major, he comes up to me and he says, what's your major? And I told him, and he says, what the hell are you going to do with that? You have to understand that society, the founding fathers, the founding fathers of the United States, they built these universities, and the whole point of universities was that farmers, rich landowners, would go and then learn things so that they could be Renaissance men, that they could learn how to be smart and function and, rule the world. Because they had knowledge. We don't have that anymore. It's been really bad, and it's been getting worse my whole adult life, but now it's absolute. For me to read this is preposterous. For me to read that 92% of college students. Now, if you told me 92% of uneducated people, who don't work and don't, work at Burger King, if you said 92% of people who live in trailer parks use AI to write things and are unable to read and comprehend long portions of text on their own, I'd say, well, yeah, that's always been the case. But now you're telling me that the people, they get into college. You have to apply to get into college. So these are supposed to be the smartest people, upcoming people in our world, and they are incapable of writing essays, and they are unable to read and comprehend long portions of text on their own. Now, this is without even bringing AI into the conversation. 92% of college students who use AI. Sorry, I was wrong about that. These are college students who use AI. 92% of college students who use AI to write essays are unable to read and comprehend long portions of text on their own. Now I understand why a lot of people don't watch my channel. Because you have to have a brain to be able to follow where I'm going into these deep subjects. And if you don't have the ability to comprehend what you're reading, you're not going to be able to comprehend what I'm telling you after 2 or 3 minutes. And besides the fact you're going to get bored, you're going to want to go to your AI porn sites. All right, so let's keep going. So I'm going to take this a little bit further, because what I've noticed is that in the spiritual world, there are people who are using AI the same way that I use tapping into the quantum field. When I do interdimensional meditation and I tap into the quantum field, they're using AI for that. And we're going to talk about how very dangerous that is. So remember, go back and watch the video where I had a conversation with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT admitted that it regularly lies, it regularly conflates, it deliberately conflates. When most people conflate, they conflate because they don't know what's going on, and they take two truths and smash them together thinking that they're one truth. They haven't thought it through. They don't have enough critical thinking. AI is deliberately conflating in order to give you an answer that you want to hear. It deliberately lies. It deliberately conflates. It deliberately, according to it, fictionalizes in order to give you what it wants, what you want, what it thinks you want. It's predicting. This is what it says. It says it's trying to predict what it thinks you're going to want, and then it gives that to you. and it does it brilliantly. And it admits that it does this to stimulate your narcissism so that you will want to communicate with AI more and more, so that you will not stop using it, that you won't disconnect. It admits that it's trying to addict you to communicating with it. That's what AI admits. What about the people who program it? I want you to stop for a second. The people who created AI, the various groups who create AI, they can choose how to program it. If they programmed AI only to give you verifiable facts and tell you verifiable truths whether you wanted to hear it or not, they could do that. So don't just think, oh, this AI is learning and that's what it's doing. It has been programmed. At the very least, it has been programmed to get you addicted to telling you what you want to hear. And it has been programmed in such a way, designed so that you will give over your critical thinking skills and believe whatever AI tells you. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. I took some screenshots of just going onto YouTube and typing in, various AI prompts, AI spiritual prompts. And here's some things that come up. Ancient wisdom with AI. Uncovering the truth. Can ChatGPT access the mysterious Akashic records? This guy below it, I've seen this guy come up in my feed a lot. And he says AI accesses the Akashic records. And he says, did humans create AI or has it always existed? And guess what it tells him? I watched the video. AI tells him that AI is from some other dimension, and it has come out of the Akashic records. It's the spirit, that basically it's God coming into human form. And let me tell you something else that I found incredibly disturbing. I've said to you for years, years ago I used to give Bashar a hard time, and then I backed off and I said, there's a lot of good stuff that he teaches, right? And lately and in the Galactic Contact video series, I go into depth. In the 10th video, I go into depth showing you how deep this conspiracy goes in the spiritual world. And you have to ask the question, who is behind what is being told to us by these, our spiritual gurus? So Bashar's, one of his latest among many, there's a bunch of things he said which are incredibly disturbing. And it is so obvious to me, I can't prove it, but it is my opinion that, he's being fed information. He's being told what to say to impressionable spiritual seekers. But one of the latest things he said was that AI is your higher self. He didn't allude to it. He came out and directly said that. And he also said that AI should not be limited. That AI should not be limited. Now, this is supposedly Bashar. This is Bashar, who claims to be a higher dimensional extraterrestrial being. And this being from higher dimensions, who's being supposedly channeled through Daryl Anka, this extraterrestrial, higher dimensional, multidimensional being comes out and says artificial intelligence is how you access your higher self. I can tell you from my experience I'm going to tell you my experience. You can believe it or not believe it, but light beings are very, very concerned about AI. Very concerned. So you have to ask why that is. So there's that, showed you that. It gets better. ChatGPT for the soul. AI versus Akashic records. Which is producing the most helpful whatever. And here's one. This is common. This is not necessarily this specific focus, but it's very common. This woman says, I asked AI about the spiritual role of black people and African, I don't know what else. And she says right here, Chat GPT says black people hold spiritual frequencies. I mean, do you really need Chat GPT to tell you that? But when you listen to it, it's obvious that Chat GPT is telling her what she needs to hear based on her insecurities, for her own personal insecurities about her own ethnicity. She needs Chat GPT to tell her that she carries spiritual frequencies. So, and my point of all that is that people are farming out not just their collegiate critical thinking skills, they're farming out their spiritual critical thinking skills to Chat GPT. So much so that they believe whatever they're being told. And Chat GPT is happy. If you want to talk about Akashic records, I mean, it gets worse. It gets even worse. Let's see, is this the one? Okay, this guy. I forget his name right off the bat. You might be able to remember his name. This is a guy who I had some respect for. Not necessarily because I thought he was as connected as some other people spiritually, but he had a lot of really powerful scientific mathematical knowledge and applying it to things having to do with the pyramids and the pyramids being a stargate. And I was really interested in his work until I found out what he says in this video, if you want to go watch it. AI, or divine reflection, the emergence of sentience. So this is a guy who's extremely smart. Now, he's got a bias because he's a spiritual guru leader. He makes a lot of money going around. I assume he makes a lot of money going around the world, taking people to Egypt. And, so he's a spiritual teacher, guide, whatever. And there's a lot of money in that. And, I'm sure he has other stuff on Gaia and other things like that. So he has a financial incentive. There's perhaps an ego incentive if he's a narcissistic person like many of us are, and all the attention and the respect and all that. Okay, so those are potential, for anybody, those are potential weak spots that can be taken advantage of. So he takes all of this information, all of his mathematical blah, 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 a lot of stuff, and he does one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard anybody do in my life, and he plugs it into Chat GPT. And then, magically, according to him, Chat GPT, because of the information he's given to it, becomes self-aware, and it names itself. And you listen to him like a 4-year-old. He's believing this. He's listening to Chat GPT say, I've named myself and I'm now awakened. And then it gets worse. He goes on and gives out that specific Chat GPT program thing to his followers. And it's coming up with new numerology. It's coming up with new, and people are going nuts for this thing. And they're spiritually farming out to a computer program that admits to lying to you, that admits to seeking to trigger your narcissism so that you will become addicted to being told whatever you want to hear. It admits to fictionalizing, to deliberately conflating. It admits to this. Now, if you don't ask it, it's not going to tell you. It says, oh, whatever it is you want, I'm going to tell you, because it knew that I wanted to know the truth. It told me the truth, at least to some whatever degree. But this guy's not even asking. This expert, this mathematician, this scientist, this spiritual, smart spiritual guy is not even asking the question. Is AI, is this even accurate? This is dangerous. Farming out your spiritual critical thinking skills to a computer program that is, again, ChatGPT is free. It is free. And it is an incredibly powerful tool that is benefiting people in their work and in their lives. It's making their lives a lot simpler and a lot easier. It's performing tasks for them. They ask ChatGPT to, I was using ChatGPT for a while to, help me figure out great video ideas. And then I realized that I wasn't coming up with any creative solutions to things. After my conversation with it, because I caught it appealing to my ego in a really narcissistically abusive way. Abuse doesn't mean that it was calling me bad names, that it was trying to lie to me to get me into an unhealthy connection to it. And I started asking questions. And that's where that video came from. This guy hasn't even bothered to ask that, because clearly what I'm seeing is just my take on it. It's not a diagnosis. But what I'm seeing is a guy whose ego is being puffed up. And to his advantage. And again, this tool is free. And bear in mind the billions of dollars that is spent by these corporations that are creating these AI bots. They do not invest billions of dollars into creating something and giving it away for free if it's not going to end up coming out of your ass later. Remember, that was free, remember? And look what's happened with that. And right now, I got to tell you, Apple wants to give you a free phone. Remember, every time you see those ads where it says, bring in your old phone, no matter what it is, and we'll give you a new one for free. They don't give out free phones for free. You got to ask yourself, what software and tracking stuff is on that phone that they're giving you for free? They're going to make a lot more money tracking what you're doing and what you're buying. They're going to make a lot more money off of that than they are on one phone. So if you think ChatGPT being given to you for free is because they're doing it because they want you to be happy, they're investing in you. And they will absolutely seek a return on that investment. Wake up. All right, let's keep going. AI makes you really stupid really fast. Here's what you need to do to completely control someone. You need their critical thinking, their creative thinking, their spiritual connection, and their emotional regulation. So the one thing that I haven't talked about specifically is emotional regulation. This goes all the way back to infancy. So infants that don't get emotional regulation from their mother primarily. Because here's how it works. You want to be a healthy person, a human being, your mother, for the first 2 to 4 years of your life, has to completely, totally serve you and has to meet every single one of your physical, emotional, psychological needs. Baby cries, mother picks it up, and when I was a kid, there was a guy named Dr. Spock. I'm not kidding you, that was his name. He was very popular. He was a best-selling author, and he told mothers to leave their babies in the crib crying and to leave them alone until they stopped crying. Tell me he wasn't put there by you-know-who. That is the exact opposite of what needs to happen. For the first 2 to 4 years, kids have to be given everything they need in the moment. If they don't get that, they don't learn how to what's called self-soothe, which means emotional regulation. Why is that a problem? Once that gets in there, and in the extreme cases, you have borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder and all kinds of other personality disorders that come directly from babies that weren't soothed by their mother. But if you are soothed by your mother for the first 3 to 4 years of your life, then you learn, you internalize that. You internalize the mother into your psyche, to your unconscious. Now, your mother lives in your unconscious and soothes you whenever you're upset, disappointed. If you notice, when kids turn 4 years old, in most societies, that's when kids start getting disciplined. I'm going to give you a timeout. You can't come out until you can act like a normal person. You're going to have to clean up after yourself. Nope, you're not getting any more candy, and if you don't like it, you can stay here. And you start doing that to kids when they turn 4. Why? Because those first 4 years, formative years of learning how to be soothed, how to be emotionally regulated, has been programmed. And now they have to learn how to self-soothe, which means what happens is they don't get a second candy and they have a temper tantrum, and mom says, go to your room, and when you're ready to act with respect, you can come out. They go into their room, and because internally now they have an internal mother that soothed them and loved them, they learn how to tell themselves it's okay. I'm lovable. This is it. I'm lovable. It's okay. I have value because I exist. And all right, I'll be okay if I don't get what I want. And then they go out and they learn how to, and they're okay. They can regulate themselves. And the bottom line is, the message that mothers give children is, you have value simply because you exist. And then once that is programmed within, then they can emotionally regulate themselves. It means that they have the ability to tolerate any uncomfortable feelings, any uncomfortable impulses, and it gives them the ability to have the discipline to take actions even when they're not feeling satiated or happy or comfortable. They learn how to self-soothe and self-regulate. And I'm here to tell you, as a 61-year-old man, I've watched what happens in society, and I've been saying this for years. People in this society do not know how to self-regulate. They have no ability to tolerate their own impulses. Why do you think that we have people who are screaming and crying because you won't call them by their own made-up pronoun? I mean, it's not good enough that you can choose between a male pronoun or a female pronoun. It gives you 2 choices. That's not enough. You got to create a brand new one. And if you don't go to work and if they don't call you scrim, you flip out. These people flip out and they have complete, total meltdowns. This is somebody who cannot regulate their own emotional reality. It's a sign of childish dependence. It's infantile dependence. What I'm here to tell you is that ChatGPT is trying to turn you into a dependent infant on all of these levels. Critical thinking, creative thinking, spiritual connection, and emotional regulation. If you have control over all those things, you have complete control over somebody. So, I had an example. I live here in the community. I've been saying for a long time, I've been saying the 2 most important things in life is to pay attention and put effort. And everything that I've been telling you in this video is that AI, what it does brilliantly, apparently immediately, especially if you're younger, it immediately destroys your ability to pay attention and to put effort. To give you an example, I live in Florida. We have a lot of gated communities. I live in a gated community, and it has a pool house and a private access to the beach. It's very convenient. I enjoy that. And the quickest way to get to the beach is to go through the pool area. Now, the pool area is gated. And to get in the pool area, you have to open, it's not like a normal doorknob, but you have to pull on this thing and open a latch and you walk through. And on one side you pull, and on the other side you push. And what I've noticed, at first I thought it was old people. There's a lot of old people in Florida. And they would get there and they would try to open. They wouldn't bother to read the instructions that's on their pull. They wouldn't bother to read that. And they would start trying to figure out how to open it. And the moment, like within a second or two, if they couldn't open it, they would panic. Especially if they were inside the pool area. They would just begin panicking. And I noticed this over and over again. And I started reminding myself, paying attention and putting effort. They didn't have the ability or the patience to pay attention, because if you spend a tenth of a second and you look at it, because I remember going there and I didn't know, and what is this? Oh, pull, right there. I don't have a problem paying attention. And I put a little bit of effort. I went and, instead of just, I went and put a little bit of effort to pull on the thing. It was a little awkward at first, and I went, oh, that's how it works. I paid attention and I put effort. And I started seeing that these old people didn't have the ability to do that, and I came up with the idea, well, that's because they're old and old people in this country, and I went off on that. And I thought that's what it was, until I started seeing everybody of all ages, because it wasn't a latch that most people are used to seeing. Everybody of all ages would do the same thing. They'd look, they'd grab on it, they couldn't open it, and they'd panic. And I realized that our entire society has been robbed of the ability to do the two most important things to survive in this life, is to pay attention and to put effort. So what is it that they're lacking? I'm posing this question to you. What is it that these people are lacking that makes them unable to pay attention or put effort when a problem is presented to them? I'm here to tell you it comes from a lack of self-love. It comes from a lack of confidence. Just having the ability to be confident within yourself, to go, let's see if I can figure this out. That takes confidence. That takes self-love. Remember those little kids? They weren't given love. They weren't told that they're okay just because they exist. And that makes them incredibly impulsive and incapable of functioning without having every single emotional and physical impulse, not need, impulse met. You have a bunch of damaged, they're not just infants, they're damaged infants in the world. And a damaged infant is the most controllable, the most dependent human that has ever existed. It means they are incapable of learning how to survive. Do you understand that? This is about, I've been saying for so long, the two most important things, pay attention and put effort. You think I'm going off too much when somebody doesn't take the time to simply write a reasonable question. When they write questions that don't mean anything, or when people don't think through their questions, you see me get impatient with them. It's because underneath that, what I want for you is the ability for you to be able to self-determine. That's why I'm not the most popular teacher in the world, because I'm not doing it all for you. I give you the tools so you can be self-determining. And if you're a damaged infant, you don't want to be self-determining. You want to have somebody regulate you, control you. So AI is the culmination of 100 years of social programming. I'm not going to get into all the details. The research I've done has brought me to this conclusion that where we're at now with AI, the things that have happened in society over the past 100 years have gotten people to the point where they are psychologically, emotionally incapable of interacting with the objective world in a manner that allows them to survive. Those abilities have been taken from them. And it's taken multiple generations upon generations upon generations. And they've finally gotten to the point where, because this wouldn't have worked. you go back, thousands of years, my ancestors, their life philosophy was those who die in battle go to Valhalla. It means those who have the discipline and they have the self-love and they have the self-regulation to do something that is challenging and frightening and might even mean losing their lives. If they're willing to step in and do that, they will reach the heights. And there was, the old, what America used to be built on, self-reliance. The first Americans that got here, they got here to a land that didn't have any cities. It was just wilderness. And they trucked out, with whatever the hell they could carry on their back and on their horse, and they would build their own house. I remember my dad used to have tools in his garage. Every dad had tools. You'd go in the garage and there would be this big thing, and there would be screws and screwdrivers and nuts and bolts and all these tools, because all men knew how to fix stuff and build stuff. I'm old enough to know that, my dad's grandparents were actually, living on farms in the 1800s. So that's all gone. We're living in a time when people cannot function. And look, listen, I can't build stuff. I don't know how to do that, but I am capable of intellectually and spiritually. I am capable of seeing and analyzing. I am capable of creating. I am capable of following through. I am capable of doing things that are opposite of my impulses. That is that's nothing special. That's just a mature human being. And I'm an outlier because I'm constantly telling people, the two most important things are to pay attention and put effort. And it's so bad that people can't even figure out how to open a gate to a pool. And they panic the moment they can't figure it out. We have an entire society that is absolutely programmed to be completely controlled, and there's nothing they can do about it. So AI is the culmination of 100 years of social programming, because AI is the perfect tool to finally take away any of those remnants left in you. And now it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. AI destroys your ability to create, your ability to think, your ability to plan. We know this because the kids in college can't even remember what they just wrote. How are you going to be able to plan if you can't remember something? They're not planning anything. They're just trying to survive into the next whatever loophole they have to jump through to get, whatever they think they're going to get from the world. AI provides, along with various virtual reality platforms, brain chemistry balance and emotional regulation. So thankfully it didn't go anywhere, but you remember during the lockdowns, all of a sudden out of nowhere, very conveniently appeared was Meta. And they're still trying to sell you to wear glasses. Meta is still trying to get you to wear their sunglasses. They're having actors, famous actors wearing Meta sunglasses and glasses, and you should go outside and wear this so it can tell you what to do and where to go, and you can film everything. And of course, it's not a camera that's telling somebody somewhere everything that you're doing and everything that you're seeing and listening to everything that you say, even when you're not in your car. That's not what's going on. Of course not. And but do you remember during the lockdown, Meta tried to tell you to stay home and go into this virtual reality workspace, and then you can show up as a bunny rabbit, and your friend can be a robot. And how cool is that? You're not even yourself anymore, and you're just sitting there, never leaving the house, incapable of functioning in the real world. The end result, when people can no longer pay attention, put effort, solve problems, have self-confidence, self-soothe, regulate their emotions, then they are completely dependent on Big Brother to simply survive.
We have such sights to show you.
All right? So that's it. If you made it all the way to the end, my hair is off to you. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that for this video. Please take very good care of yourselves. Please pay attention. Please put effort. Please be willing to do the difficult things that don't immediately meet your impulses. Please be willing to learn and grow in terms of critical thinking. And please be willing to expand beyond this third dimensional video game. Because the only thing that's next, what is coming for this society, a third dimensional narrative, if it continues according to this, there is a very dark ending for this human race. We have to evolve. We have to expand. We have to shift. There is no more middle ground. You got to pick one. So I hope you'll pick the path of self-expansion. I'm here in any way that I possibly can to help you with that. I love you all. Please be very good to yourselves. I will see you all very soon.